So, what can a defense contractor's quarterly report really tell us about the state of the world? Well, it turns out a whole lot. We're about to deconstruct Northrop Grumman's latest numbers, and believe me, they paint a pretty fascinating picture of global tech, investment, and security.
We're talking about a company that's at the absolute heart of some of the most advanced and powerful technology being built today. From stealth bombers that are practically invisible to the rockets that are launching our future into orbit.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What does the health of one of these giants actually tell us about the geopolitical trends, about the global race for technology, and really about the future of defense itself?
To figure that out, here's what we're going to do. We'll start with the hard numbers, then we'll get to the cool stuff, the tech. After that, we'll dive into their massive investments in innovation, the surging global demand, and finally, we'll take a look at what the future might hold for them.
Okay, so to understand that big picture, we've got to start with the numbers. A company's health really begins on its balance sheet, so let's see what the key indicators are telling us.
The first number that jumps right out is this: 5% organic sales growth. And why that's a big deal is because it shows the core business is steadily expanding, even without buying up other companies. It's just a sign of really solid fundamental health.
But this is where it gets really telling. A massive 32% jump in international sales just for this quarter. This tells us the demand for their technology isn't just a US thing. Allies all around the world are seriously ramping up their defense spending.
And this next number, 1.17x, is what's called the book-to-bill ratio. Now, this is one of the most important metrics for a company like this, and honestly, it tells us a ton about their future.
Okay, book-to-bill sounds a little jargony, right? But think of it like this, like a bakery. If they sell 100 cakes but get new orders for 117 more, that's a fantastic sign. So here's the key takeaway. For every single dollar of work Northrop Grumman finished, they booked $1.17 in new orders. Their pipeline isn't just full, it is actively growing.
All right, enough with the spreadsheets. Let's connect those strong financials to the reason they exist in the first place. Let's get to the really cool stuff, the actual high-tech hardware that's defining the next generation of defense. This right here is the B-21 Raider, the future of America's strategic bomber force. And the huge news this quarter? A second B-21 has officially entered flight testing. Now that is a massive milestone. It helps validate performance, it minimizes risk, and it just speeds up the entire program. Then, on the missile defense front, the company got a multi-billion-dollar extension for its ground-based mid-course defense system, that's the GMD, which is designed to protect the U.S. from long-range missile threats. And get this, their command system, the IBCS, which basically networks all the different missile defense systems together, now has a perfect 32 for 32 success record in live fire tests. Perfect.
And it's not all just military hardware. These solid rocket motors, the GEM 63XLs, they're powering commercial launches, helping to build out Amazon's Cooper satellite network. It's just going to show how the same core technologies are absolutely critical for both the commercial and military worlds.
But you don't stay on the cutting edge by accident, right? So, how does a company like this stay ahead of the curve? Well, it's by strategically investing billions today to make sure they have that technological advantage tomorrow.
Let's just put a number on that. Over the past 2 years alone, they've poured over $2.1 billion into their own internal research and development. That is a massive investment in creating the next generation of game-changing technologies in-house, which gives them a huge potential edge over competitors.
And a huge chunk of that investment is in things you can't always see, like these advanced microelectronics. By operating 2 of their own foundries right here in the US, they are securing a domestic supply chain for the computer chips that are, let's be honest, the brains behind pretty much every modern defense system. So why spend all this money? It's not random. It's a really clear 4-part strategy. First, build the factory capacity you need to meet this rising demand. Second, accelerate those key programs like the B-21. Third, invent the capabilities you're going to need 10 years from now. And finally, use new digital tools to make everything more affordable.
Okay, now let's zoom out for a second. All of this activity, all this spending, it's a direct response to a global security environment where demand from allied nations is hitting, well, historic levels.
This quote from CEO Kathy Warden? It really says it all. You know that word unprecedented? That's not something CEOs throw around lightly. It reflects a fundamental shift as nations across the globe, especially in Europe and the Indo-Pacific, are committing to modernizing their forces.
And this number illustrates that trend perfectly.
A 20% growth in international sales so far this year shows that the 32% quarterly spike we saw earlier isn't some fluke. Nope, it's part of a sustained, powerful global movement, and it's all being driven by geopolitical uncertainty.
So, with all that in mind, what does the path to 2026 actually look like? Well, it's a balance of tremendous opportunity and some very real challenges.
The company is definitely projecting confidence. They're expecting continued steady sales growth across all their business areas, and they're holding a very strong forecast for free cash flow. That's a signal that they feel good about their ability to keep investing in innovation while also returning value to shareholders.
So really, it all comes down to this balancing act. The tailwinds pushing them forward are powerful. You've got strong political support for defense funding, that massive international demand we talked about, and a huge backlog of existing orders. But the headwinds are real too. You've got the risk of U.S. government shutdowns causing delays, bureaucratic slowdowns on new contracts, and those persistent supply chain issues. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. In an era where technology is accelerating so fast and global friction seems to be rising, the future of our collective security really rests on this delicate interplay between private sector innovation, massive capital investment, and the policy set by governments all around the world. The real question is, are we striking the right balance?